Welcome back to my top 100 for 2024 from Unraveled Game Thoughts, top 71 to 80. Again, if you're watching this video, then you at least have gone to the Patreon channel and you've explored that I have a few other things on the site here. Obviously, most of the stuff that I have listed here is just free content. You don't have to be a Patreon. Probably going to continue doing that for the next year or so, and probably the same for Ko-Fi. Although Ko-Fi, I don't think you have to be. You don't like. It's just a one-off kind of deal on Ko-Fi. So if you want to support the channel, I'd say go for it. I would love it. But I mostly produce this content because it's fun and I enjoy doing it, and a lot of it really just comes down to time and finding the spots in my schedule around family where I can do these recordings and get to talk about board games. So let's get on with number 80. Number 80 is Firefly the Game, which is by Aaron Dill, John Kowaleski, and Sean Swigert. I brought my phone with me to keep up with the designers because I feel like it's good to put them out there, and I know the last video I did not have those listed, so I feel a little bad about that. I'd rather list them out. Firefly the Game is a pick up and deliver game to some degree. That is kind of primarily what you're doing. Is you're going out and getting missions, and you need to go get stuff on the board from one place, and you need to deliver it to another place, and you get some cash for that, and you win the game if you have the most cash, I believe, at the end of the game. I think that's the win condition after so many rounds. It's been a minute since I played. Now, I like this game probably in large part because I feel like the game is fantastic for the theme. Is it a pick up and deliver game? Absolutely. But that's what Firefly kind of was. The show was sort of space cowboys who did pick up and deliver. And I just like how the theme spills through the game. You have Reavers. Now, if you're not familiar with Firefly, then you won't know what the heck I'm talking about. But Reavers, you might call them akin to zombies, and that were in space and really just kind of flew around on junk ships and were not good to run into. And you have to avoid them in Firefly the Game because they're flying around. And then there was the, I think of it as like Empire, but it was like the Imperial folks who were like the government, and you're trying to avoid the government craft as well. So you have two things, and players can kind of do some stuff that can make the Reavers and the government move toward your ship and make it harder for you because you really have to fly around on the board. I have the expansion, the Blue Sun and the Red Sun, and it's actually Caladesia and then the Blue Sun expansion that go around the main board. So it makes a huge board. So there's a lot of space to go. There's a lot of people that you can go get orders from. There's some level of efficiency planning, like if I can kind of plan my map out and pick up a few things, but you only have so much room on your ship unless you upgrade it. So there's a lot of little bells and whistles to the simple pick up and deliver mechanic, and it's fun. I enjoy it. I have a fun time playing. It does take a while. I think the last time I played might have been a 2-player game, and it still took like 4 hours. So I feel like it's a long game for what it is, but it's one of those games, just plan many hours around it. You sit down and you just kind of get into the theme. I think it's fun. A lot of setup for all of that. So when you think about the balance of like how much I have to set up for how much do I get out of the game, if you're not a huge fan of a pick up and deliver mechanic, you may not feel like it's worth what you get out of it. But I, again, love the theme, and so it kind of always makes my list. Even if it's not my favorite game of all time, it is a lovely game that I find I don't see myself trading this because I just enjoy the theme too much, and I feel like there are times where it's going to be fun to get out and play with people, especially folks who are feeling a little reminiscent. Man, I miss Firefly. You know what? I got a board game that's great for that. Number 79 is bordering on being a classic. I am not sure it would actually constitute being a classic, but 20. I guess the original was 2012, so that's kind of cool. This is Love Letter, and this is by Andrew Bosley and Samuel R. Shimota. So I originally had an initial copy that had just basic cards, and not too long ago, maybe in the last couple of years, I got the upgrade where it adds in, I think, the spy. And if it's not the spy, it's another. It adds in a card that kind of tweaks the game a little bit and makes it, to me, a little bit more complex and fun. And it's not hard to teach. It's not hard to play. Basically, the theme is a princess has lost. Did she lose somebody? Maybe the prince died or something. She is looking for another person that she can confide in, and you are playing with your hand of cards. They're dealt out. There's like one card that's pulled out of the deck. You don't know what card that's going to be, and so when you play your hand, no one knows exactly what cards they have, but the person who wins the round at the end of the a given round, because you're trying to get these gems from the princess. They're like tokens of her affection you're trying to get from the princess, and at the end of a round, if you've won the round, you get a gem. And so at the end of the game, after multiple rounds, whoever has the most gems wins the game, or you can kind of set a limit, whoever's the 5 gems first or whatever. I don't know what the rule. I can't remember what the rules say. We don't usually finish like a full official game. We usually just get like 3, 4, 5 rounds, and then we're like, oh, okay, that's fine. Let's play something else. Each character does a different thing. In fact, one of the characters is the princess, and she's the highest level card. And if you ended the game and that was the card that you're putting down, comparing it to everybody else's numbers, you're going to win. Now the catch is every turn you only have one card in your hand. I'm sorry, there is a deck of cards. We don't deal the cards out. I don't know why I said that. I just forgot what game we were playing. All the deck is in the middle. Everybody's dealt one card. So on your turn, you're going to draw a card, and then you're going to look at those 2 cards, and you're going to play one. Or do you have 2 cards? I think you have 2 cards in hand, because you're going to draw a card, you're going to play a card, and then you have to discard a card. Is that right? That's right, because you always have 1 card in your hand. So you must have 2 cards. Draw a card, play a card, discard a card. So when you are, like if you have the princess, basically you can kind of be in the situation where you end up with 2 good cards, or you're not sure what to discard, or say you're discarding a 1. Well, people know you've got something better than a 1 in your hand, and so there is 1 card that you can try to guess what card a person has in their hand. And if you guess the princess and they have the princess, they're out of the game. And all the cards have a slightly different thing they do. One might let you look at another player's hand and see what it is. Now I know your card. One of them you put down, and then no one can make you discard a card or affect you with an ability. It like protects you for a round. I think it's a chambermaid that does that, or maybe it's just the maid. And yeah, so you go through a round, and like you're kind of trying to knock people out of the game or out of the round. Because if you get knocked out of the round because someone guessed your card or something, whatever the mechanic was that knocked you out based on the cards, then if you're left at the end and then you reveal your card, highest card wins. That's how that works. There's another card that trades out the card that was left out, or if it's like because of the way the mechanics of cards work, toward the end of the round, you might have to pull that card in instead of drawing a card because the deck is out or something like that. Anyway, it's a great game. It's kind of like a hint of social deduction, but it's more of a card game with a little tiny bit of strategy and a little bit of luck, but pretty fun when you get a group of people around. And I think it plays up to 6 players. I think the newer version plays up to 6. I think the old one, the original version, only plays 5. But yeah, Love Letter is fantastic. Very small, easy to play, lovely game to get to the table. Okay, let's see. Number 78. Uh, this again is one of those games that kind of falls into that. I'm not 100% sure what I think about it, but every time I play it, I like it, and I usually want to play like 3, 4, 5, 6 games of it in a short period of time because I'm like, I kind of like these mechanics. I think part of it for me is I don't know all of the things that can happen in the game or all of the cards and abilities. So I always kind of feel like I'm exploring and I don't really quite know what I'm doing or what people could hit me with, but I still like it, and it's Blood Rage. Blood Rage is a area control game with Vikings, and you're basically ultimately putting dudes on a map. It's a very small map. It's only got like what, 8, 9, 10 areas, and then the one in the middle has a special ability. I can't remember what the ability is, but it's a little bit special. And whenever your Vikings die, they go to Valhalla. But then at least one Viking clan has a special ability where they get some points, some rage points from Vikings going to Valhalla, and you can use some of those mechanics in kind of a backwards way to help you out down the road. There's these monsters that come out. It's got some minis with it. It's a little bit on the uh, borders on could be a bloated game to some degree, but it doesn't really take up that much room. I've got maybe an expansion or something, but it's all in the same box. It all fits in there. It just feels like Ameritrash to some degree because of the way it works, but the mechanics are nice and they're pleasant for an area control game, which is not really my style of game. It actually isn't that bad, and I didn't even. Oh, I know the designer. It's Eric Lang because he is always at BGGCon. So I mean, he's just every time I've gone, he's been there, and he is just a really great guy. So I'm going to double check that, make sure that I do have the right designer here. Yep, Eric M. Lang. So yeah, it's a great game. Despite being not in my desirable category of mechanics, I still like it and I enjoy it. And I feel like certain people, it's a good game to get out to the table and say, hey, you would like this one based on, maybe they like Risk or they like Dudes on the Map, even older school games. They're like, I've never played a modern one. That might be a good gateway game for somebody who's already played some like pretty intense stuff. It's not a gateway game. I would not call it that, but there you go. Number 77. Let's see. It is Azul. And this is designed by Michael Kiesling, which I almost think I should know off the top of my head, but I don't. Azul is a fantastic abstract puzzle game. It has a very streamlined set of mechanics. You basically put all these beautiful tiles into a bag. You're pulling out a bunch and putting them on these, I'm going to call them carpets, but they're like discs, like coasters. Putting about 4 on each one, and then you're drafting the tiles. You're either picking all of one type of tile from one of the coasters and moving everything else in the middle, or you are picking one from the middle, which sometimes maybe you have to get the first -1 if you're the first person to grab from the middle, but you have to get all of any particular tile you grab. So you're ultimately trying to fill out your board, and there's some rules for how you place those tiles on your board and when they move over, and then tiles go back into the bag that are removed from your board, and you're scoring points trying to make orthogonal connections on the one part of your board. But the game ends when anybody's completed a horizontal row on the right side of the board. And so you gotta watch what are other people doing. If someone's about to complete that horizontal row, you want to try to finish whatever you're trying to get because you score points. It's like 7 points if you have a vertical line. It's like 10 points if you get all 5 spots of one type, and it's 2 points for getting the horizontal, of which you can generally you can get more than one, because sometimes if you plan it out a little bit, you can end up on the last round knocking out several horizontal rows with just a few discs. But it's an enjoyable, easy to get to the table. Definitely, I would put it in the gateway category of game. I have actually encouraged some folks who were like, hey, I'm looking for a good game that I can just introduce modern board games to my family. Azul, to me, is a great go-to. It's a tiny bit of complexity to the rules, but not enough that I think is going to really thwart anybody. And as long as I can answer their questions, which I usually can, probably over the phone, it's not too bad. So that is number 77. Number 76, I think it might have moved up my list slightly. I think it was a little bit lower, but I can't remember 100%. It is Dominion 2nd Edition. I'll be honest, I don't play this a whole lot anymore. I used to play it more, and then as the collection is gone, it's one that kind of sits in the background and doesn't get played a whole lot, but it is a really good game. It's not hard to play. I've got probably 3 to 4 expansions. I've got them all condensed in one container and then organized in there. But it's a deck builder. Probably, it may be one of the purest deck builders out there. And you can sort of pick, you're going to pick 10 cards that you're going to be using in any given game of different values. And you can sort of, they have suggestions on the various sets of, here are the cards that you could consider putting together. You could look through, there's like a, what do you call it? There's like one card that's slightly different color than all the rest. That's like, this is a card for that set. So you have a deck of cards that are just one card from each of the different sets of cards. I think there's like 10 in each stack, but some expansions may have other numbers of cards in certain stacks, or it's not all the same card. So I think I have like knights, or one of them I have like knights, and it's all different knights. You don't have the same knights in different stacks. It's different. It's all the different knights in one stack, and so you might get one knight versus another depending on what you're buying. But yeah, it is a solid go-to game. Probably would say it borders on being a gateway game. It's not. I can't 100% say that because there is some complexity, especially if you're throwing in other sets. But if you were just getting the base game and just getting it to the table, it's not that hard. It's real easy. And if you just think you might like deck builders, then I'd say this one's a great one to consider as an initial deck builder. That is Dominion. That is by Donald Vaccarino or Vassarino. I am not sure 100% how to pronounce his name. And currently published by Rio Grande Games, I think, unless it's changed. All right. Moving on is another game that has moved up my list. And, this is a game I was just on, what is this? It's a Facebook page I go to sometimes, Board Game Revolution Community. So I'm not good at internet chatter too much. Every once in a while I'll say something or make a comment, but I'll be silent for a long time. And not because I'm against it, just not good. Like, that's just, I'm involved in other things, and I'm usually texting friends or doing something that's more in real time and not with people I don't know on the internet. They're fantastic. I don't dislike it. I'm not disparaging it. I'm just saying I'm not good at it. So that being said, one of the questions on the Board Game Revolution community was, what are some games that you think could use a reprint? And so I was looking through my collection and I listed a few, but this game is actually one that I could see a kind of souped up reprint being really good for the game, and that is Concordia. It is a lovely game where you're sort of gaining control of areas on a map. You're getting resources. It's got some card play that give different abilities and or points at the end of the game. And some of the expansions really add some good content. I honestly think I don't know if this game would be as high if I was just considering it for its base. But when you throw in certain expansions, Salt I think is one, and I know I think I've played with more than one expansion in the past. Venus might be one, or Venza, or I'm mispronouncing it. I could look through here, but I don't want to go messing with my phone right now. So there's good expansions. That's the point. There's good expansions, and they add a lot to the game, and it's a great game. So even though I don't own this game, it remains on my top 100. I got a 7.97 rating. This is designed by Mac Gertz, And I think I might even have another game on my list that's designed by him. I can't remember what else he's done, but it's an older one, 2013. So this has been around for a while. I think it's got good staying power. I would love to see something like they did with Castles of Burgundy, where they just like soup it up and do the art nice and make it a little bit more cool. I don't think I'd spend $250 for it, but if they were able to make a copy that was like right in that sort of $100 range, that was a really nice copy, that would be fantastic. I would love to see that. That is Concordia, and where are we next? I don't know who designed this game. This is another party game. So I guess the what did I say? I wasn't sure what the highest party game on my list was last time, but Ready Set Bet was on there. This is actually higher, and I think there might even be. This might be the highest one. I'm not sure. We'll see. I could be totally wrong. Maybe there's one like 20 points up, and I just forgot. But Green Team Wins. Green Team Wins is a fantastic game. I've enjoyed taking it to multiple venues and playing it, and just had a blast every time. There are other games similar to it, like Just One and Herd Mentality, but I feel like Green Team Wins with the way you try to get the points by either staying on the green team, or you have to flip from orange to green, or flip from green to orange if you don't pick the major category that other people are picking. It's just a little bit more engaging, I think, than like Herd Mentality or Just One. I think Just One is, I probably put a little higher than Herd Mentality, but neither of those make my top 100. Green Team Wins is a good enough party game. I think I love it, and you can pull it out with almost any crowd, and it will be engaging for them unless they just hate games. But it's good for generating discussion and getting to know people. So I think it's got a lot of good uses with that regard. And that is designed by Nathan Thornton. I do not know him. Thornton. Nathan Thornton. So sorry I pronounced that incorrectly. Let's move right along to definitely a new game on my list. Now, I'm going to argue I kind of lucked in to owning this game. Oh, it's from 2020. For some reason, I thought it was from 2024. So I guess it's been around for a while. Maybe I might have. I wonder. I'd have to check the box and see if maybe I have a newer edition or something. Maybe a second edition. But it's Comic Hunters, and I don't remember how I heard about it, but somehow it came across my radar via one of the other channels I listened to where it was mentioned. I was like, well, I'll check that out. And I heard, or maybe it was on, might have been on Game Brain. They might have mentioned it. And I was like, well, that sounds interesting. A Comic Hunters game and that set collection, and they got the Marvel IP. I was like, that's cool, because I used to own Age of Comics, the golden years, played it a couple times, and I felt like the mechanics were just, they didn't do it for me. It was a cute idea, and it had the mechanics been better, I probably would have just kept that game because I like the idea of it. But man, the mechanics were so dry. I could not. I couldn't. I just, there was no way it was going to get out to the table very often. Comic Hunters is almost like set collection the game, and if you've ever collected comic books, you know that's what comic books are all about. You're just set collecting. And I love how there's basically three rounds. Is it 3 rounds? I think it's 3 rounds. And each round you're going to do 3 different styles of collecting comics, and it changes every round. So you do each style twice. One of them you do in each round, but the others float around, so you only do the others twice a piece. And there's 4 total ways you're doing this. So all the cards are comic books, and it's pretty typical Marvel. Oh, excuse me, Marvel IP stuff. Black Panther, Iron Man, Captain America, Black Widow. I mean, if you're familiar with Avengers and all that, you're gonna recognize these comics as far as the characters go, and they are the actual art from those comic books from the different years and ages. Some of them I recognized growing up, seeing them in stores and stuff, which is really cool. It has a little bit of a reminiscent vibe to it that brings back memories, and I think that's a lot of fun. But so you have these things. So one is a draft. You're just going to get a hand of I forget. I think it's 4 cards or something like that, and you're picking one and you're passing the rest. It's super simple. I mean, it's like it takes like I don't know, depending on how fast you pick. I mean, there's some stuff to think through as far as how you're trying to score points and what you want to pick. So you might take a second to think about stuff based on the point system, but you're going to pick a card and pass it. So that round takes no time at all. It's like the first round of the first thing you do in the game. And then there's a, what do you call it? Like there's an auction, and the way the auction work is you have row of 5, row of 4, row of 4, row of 3, and this is for a 4-player game, and you're going to so you're gonna bid. You have some things you bid with on the board. You're gonna bid an amount, and you never get that money back. So once you bid it, it's gone for the game, and you're gonna do this twice. So you have to bear that in mind. And one of the kickers is you're bidding, so you're trying to get the cards you want to get and not get outbid, and you want to have enough money left over for the next bidding round. But the last person who kind of gets stuck with whatever cards you can get, because you might think, well, I like cards in all these. I'll just take that. I'll take the last one and I won't bid anything. Well, it doesn't work that way. If you're the last one, then you have to pay the value of every card in the set that you get. So if you get stuck with that 5, your whole 15 is gone most likely. They're because they're all 2s. They're all like you have value 1 comics, which are the most recent comics. You have value 2, which is I forget what it's. I don't think it's the golden years, but it's like the 80s and 90s. And then you have the golden year comics or the classic comics, which are value 3. They're the really hard ones to get, the very expensive ones. So this auction takes place with all 2 comics. Is that right? Is it all 2 comics? I think it is all 2 comics. And yeah, I believe that's correct. And then or is it 3s? It might be 3s. I think this is actually the auction for the value 3s, because the 2s are done in a different fashion. That's right. The 2s are the one. So you start with a row. If you have 4 players, you got 1 comic in the first row. It's dealt from the 2 deck, and then each turn a player can either take all of a row and then they're out. Which means if you're the first, if you take that first card, that's all you get, and then everybody else is playing with the other 3 rows. Or you can draw a card from the 2 deck and place it in a row. So it's a little bit of a push your luck, because you don't know when people are going to take a comic, and sometimes, at least in the first round, you don't really know what people are going for. By the second and third, you can kind of have an idea, and you can start playing around with that or knowing where to put stuff, and you do have an idea of what is the most valuable that people could go for based on the scoring system, because only certain superheroes score more than others, but that's all randomized at the beginning of the game, so it's different from game to game what scores the most or the best. And then the last one is probably the most interesting. There is a deck you create at the beginning of the game that's got all 1s, 2s, and 3s all mixed up, and then every time, whenever you're building your collection, between the 2 rounds, or there's three parts in the game where you're building your collection. You take everything you've gained from these different aspects of collecting comics, and you're building a collection. Whenever you put something on a table that's in your collection, you pay for it with other comics. So if I have a collection that's got 3 1s, I might pay a Golden Years 3 to get all 3 1s. And there's like some symbols and some things like that you're using to kind of think through, how do I, how much will this collection score me, point wise, so forth and so on. But you pay for those cards, and whenever you discard cards to pay for your collection, they go to this stack that's all shuffled together. And then you make a 5x5 grid, except for the very center comic. And I gotta let my wife up. She's good. She just told me something, so that's good. You get the you get 5x5 grid, middle one missing, and what you're going to do is, if you're the first player that gets to go, you can take any comic at the beginning, there's only that one hole in the middle, so you can slide. There's like 4 different comics you could slide orthogonally. You can't slide diagonally. You slide them orthogonally, and then you can you don't have to do that move, but you can, and then you can take all of a single character that's in a row or column. So let's say in my sliding, I end up with 3 Hulk comics in this column. I can take each of those Hulk comics regardless of what era they're from. So a lot of times you're just trying to get the most of a particular hero, especially at the beginning of the game. Later on, you might be trying to get particular symbols or heroes, or you might be a little more focused about it, and so you might take one or two because it's easier. But as that you go through 2 rounds of that, so by the second round, especially if you're one of the last players, there's not a whole lot to pick from, but you can often, because you can slide it as far as you want, as long as there's an orthogonal space to move something into a slot, you can move it around. You just can't move it diagonally. If you can't get around it orthogonally, you can't move it. But there's some options, more options for moving a comic book around and then taking a row or column, but there's fewer comics. So really interesting, fun ways to go about the set selection. And then the making of your collection is pretty fun. There's a lot of thinky stuff to do there. And it's the Marvel IP, so all of that is a great fun. And I'll be honest, it's like $25 for this game. I mean, it was dirt cheap. Now, I know if you go to black market or you go secondary market, I've heard you'll see it for 75 and more because it's hard to find. But it's supposed to do another print run, and it's pretty low quality as far as the parts. So when you're paying $25, you're getting a fairly low quality. The card stock is not real good. The board's real simple. I mean, it's not like I probably will try to get some tokens to replace the player scoring things, because the ones that come with the game are punch outs. They're not paper, they're almost plasticky, but they're hard to move and they're hard to pick up, and so I think that it needs something a little meatier. And I did sleeve all the cards just to protect them because the card stock's not great. But it's a fantastic game. Robert Coelho is the designer. I believe he's from Brazil, so I think this game was down in Brazil for a long time and then worked its way up to the States. But yeah, Comic Hunters, great game, makes my list, could go up over time. We will see. Next on the list is a game that I got from Kickstarter, came this past year, and it is my number 72, designed by Ander Ginea. Haven't heard of him before. I think this is the only game I know of that he's made. And artist is Sergey Krasovsky, and the art's pretty good. It's got good art, and this is dinosaurs, and I like dinosaurs. Now I can be a sucker, and sometimes I might get a dinosaur game. It's not the best dinosaur game, and then find out later like, it's not as much of what I wanted. But I do like dinosaurs, and this is Lands of the Mesozoic, and this one's not bad. I don't. It's not everything I want. Like I still feel like there's room out there for like the dinosaur game that I really want, and I don't know what that looks like. I don't know that I've encountered it yet. But this one's good. And if you like games like Wingspan or Wormspan, this has a little bit of that feel to it, but it's a tableau. I'm going to call it a tableau manager. And it's not as smooth as those games. It definitely has a little bit of a choppy feel to how you do the mechanics. Not everything in the game is well labeled to where it's super clear. All the things, some like fiddly rules, I guess, that you have to make sure you understand. But it's not hard to play. And if you played with anybody who likes dinosaurs, it's really not that bad to get to the table and teach. It just takes, you have to understand there's like 18 rounds, which sounds like a lot, but it actually goes pretty fast. It probably plays quicker than Wingspan, to be honest. And each round, like especially the first several rounds, are super quick because you just can't afford to put much out there. You can only play a card or two, and then you have to use those cards as resources to then get more things out. And so it takes some time to get kind of an engine going. And before you know it, you've hit the first extinction event, and that could wipe out some of your board. It won't necessarily have to, but it could if you're not prepared for it, for sure. And then you're kind of using your land cards to feed your herbivores. They're not disappearing per se, but you tap them to get your herbivores in play. And then a lot of times you have to tap herbivores to get carnivores in play. And so there's a little bit of, and sometimes you're tapping land and herbivores to get carnivores in play. And so there's a little bit of like a food chain that you're working through, and then they will kill each other. And whenever you discard a card from your tableau, technically it stays in your tableau. It goes to a spot in your tableau called Extinction, and everything in your Extinction deck scores. Everything on your tableau can potentially score. So if it's on your tableau, whether it's in play or extinct at the end of the game, it counts for you. You're trying to kind of build this food chain that you're churning through to get cards and to get certain effects that will score for that particular game, and get them into your Extinction, and that's how you win, is just to maximize those. And the score, the folks I've played when I played this game are reasonably good at games anyway and pick up on stuff pretty fast, and the scores have been pretty close, 41, 42. It's been real competitive as far as that goes. But that is Lands of the Mesozoic, and the last one on our chart today. Whoops, I did not spell that right. Let me see. There it is. This is a 2020 game. This is designed by Paul Abrams, Luke Badger, and Andy Rickdale. Very simple game called Regicide. It's a deck of cards, essentially. Now, it's not as fun. If you're just taking a deck of cards and you're playing Regicide, it's obviously not as fun. Regicide's more fun if you have the nice art by Sketch Goblin. It makes it more interesting and entertaining. But it's largely a deck of cards. And that's one of the things I really love about this game. It is a co-op game. So it doesn't matter how many players you have. There's like the setup is designed, you set it up for 1, 2, 3, or 4 players. So even if it's just me, there's a certain setup for trying to work through the game. And essentially, I mean, it's Regicide. You're trying to defeat the jacks, kings, and queens. And you're going to defeat them in that order. You're going to defeat all the jacks, all the queens, and then all the kings. It's very tricky because each suit has a power. So I'll see if I can remember these off the top of my head. The diamonds let you draw cards. So you don't draw cards naturally in the game. The only way to draw cards is for someone to play a diamond. And when you draw cards, so say I play 2 twos of diamonds together, because you can double up on some cards, and that's 4 cards that we draw. So I played it, I draw the first one, next player draws the next one, so forth and so on. So if I was to play like an 8 of diamonds, then I get to draw, we are collectively going to draw 8 cards. Once you get up to your full hand size, which is different depending on player count, you stop. You can't draw more cards, but it keeps going around until either everybody's hand is full or all 8 cards are drawn, either one. So diamonds draw cards. Spades and whatever cards you play, you're doing that much damage to whoever you're fighting. So if it's the jacks do 10 damage back at the end of their turn. So and they take 20 to defeat. Queens take 30 and do 15, and kings take 40 and do 20 damage to the player. So if it's on my turn, I'm going to play some cards. I'm going to respond to the suit ability. So it's either diamonds draw cards. Hearts allow me to take cards from the discard, shuffle them, and put them back under our deck, because if our deck runs out, we die. The spades will nerf the attack power of the enemy. So say the jack does normally 10 damage. Say I play a 5 of spades, then the jack will only do 5 damage. Not just to me, but I have nerfed it until that jack is defeated. So it's kind of like helping everybody out when you do that. And then we have the I got spades, a club. Oh, clubs. Clubs are double power. So let's say I played a 5 of clubs against the jack. 5 of clubs doubles. I did 10 damage to the jack. So now he's down to 10. And then that he stays down at 10 until everybody's done. So you kind of like have your damage out there on the jack as you're playing it, so you can kind of keep track of it. And then once you've defeated him, then he goes in. So that sounds pretty easy, right? Now here's a catch. Whatever suit the enemy is, that destroy, you don't have that ability. So if the jack of diamonds is out there, no one gets to draw cards. You can play a diamond. There's nothing wrong with you playing it, but it only does the damage. It will not let you draw cards. So you know that each suit is going to get it's going to come out, and you sort of try to work together to make sure everybody's hands are full of cards. And when they do damage to you, so that jack, I do damage to it, whatever damage I do, and then let's say I haven't nerfed his thing, he does 10 damage to me. So I have to discard a value 10 worth of cards from my hand to prevent that damage. If I can't, I'm dead. Basically, if I take any damage, I die, we all lose, we have to start over. So it's not too hard getting through the jacks. Once you get to the queens, it gets a little tough because they take more damage to defeat, and they do 15 points of damage. That's a lot to mitigate. And the kings, man, the kings are killer. Sometimes getting through the first king is real tough, but getting through all the kings is really hard. And I have won several times. I've played this game and won, so it's not like unbeatable. It's just difficult and challenging, and it really forces you to work together. Honestly, and I've thought about utilizing this in a therapy setting to kind of teach people the game. Is like you got to work together and teach them to work together, because you really have to kind of pay attention to what the other person's doing and may or may not have in their hand. And you got to, like, if you have even one person that's not really synchronizing or trying to, it's almost impossible to win if somebody's just trying to solo it. Because once you defeat one, say I defeat the jack on my turn, the next jack comes out and immediately I have to deal with that one. Like I get another turn basically to fight that. And so you can end up you don't want to end up in a position where it's like, well, I just used my last card to defeat that jack. Neat. But now this other jack came out and I got no cards in hand, so I can't discard anything, so we immediately lose. There is an option where you can pass to another player, and I can't remember how that works. It might be only at certain player counts. But yeah, that is Regicide. Great little game. Probably $10 maybe to get a deck of that. It might even be cheaper now. It was kind of like a $10 thing when it first came out, but it can't be that hard to produce, so it's probably going to get spit out more and more, and it's a really quick one to fire up because it's just a deck of cards. I mean, you could literally use it for a deck of cards if you wanted. But yeah, that's my top 71 to 80. Thank you again for joining Unraveled Game Thoughts.